Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Smoke and Mirrors presented by the Sports Hit List. I'm your host, Stephen Polius, alongside Declan Krogman and Greg Polius, who will, I assume, put his camera on eventually.
There we go.
How you gentlemen doing? How's your weekend?
I mean, how was it? Rainy, man.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was it was it was definitely very rainy. I mean, tropical storm. I still managed to go out. I didn't let the raindrop stop me. Deck, what about you? How was your weekend?
Yeah, man, it was pretty good. The Yankees are at like nine straight now, which is fun. Our boy Greg, game one of the championship, went out through 11 innings, postponed or stopped, comes back and throws another two innings the next day. I mean, he's on like some 1920 shit right there. I don't know who does that anymore. It's unbelievable. And they got the win in game one. So good luck to you guys in the rest of the chip. But I
Appreciate
thought that
it.
was a nice little anecdote that the viewers needed to know. We don't mess
Yeah.
around with smoke and mirrors. We got the chip, get the ball. We throw 11. We don't throw none of this single digit stuff.
Yeah, it was a big game. It was great to see. It was one of those performances that you left in awe of, and anyone that was there, that got to witness it. Shout out to Ray Jarvis for coming through for that second half, the last two innings, and then into the second game. But it was truly amazing. So yeah, Greg, you're one of a kind.
Thank you guys. Appreciate that.
Hats off.
Just doing what I gotta do to get the W's against the three-time defending champs.
Indeed, and we'll be back at it tomorrow.
And he shows homage to the opposing team. I mean, this guy is I'm gonna get emotional. Just change the subject, please.
But yeah, well, with that, we'll get into it. This weekend, since Friday, we covered the Malice in the Palace, which if you haven't seen that, please go and check that out after the show. But one of the biggest stories that has come out is Sha'Carri Richardson, because she performed in her first event since the Olympics. She was at the Prefontaine Classic in Eugene, Oregon, and this is since she was banned from the Olympics for the use of cannabis, and back in July. Now, this race did not go as well as her prelim race did for the Olympics, where she finished dead last in her 100-meter race, her 100-meter heat. Her time was 11 seconds, 11.14 seconds, which was the worst time, as you can imagine, again, finishing last. Very underwhelming for her. And one thing I want to say is that Sha'Carri has made a lot of headlines since the Olympics, during the Olympics and after. But I don't want to have the winners of that event overshadow, which the top three spots were taken by Team Jamaica. You have, and I just want to shout them out really quickly, Sharika Jackson, Shelly Ann Fraser-Price, and Elaine Thompson-Hera, who is now the second fastest woman in the 100-meter event when she finished at the time of 10.54 seconds, second to only FloJo. Now, the story does take a little bit of a dip where Sha'Carri, after the event, spotlight goes back to her. She's asked what were her thoughts on how she performed, and this is what she had to say. It was a great return back to the sport. I wanted to be able to come and perform having a month off. Not upset at myself at all. This is one race. I'm not done. You know what I'm capable of. Count me out if you want. Talk all the S you want, because I'm here to stay. I'm not done. I'm the sixth fastest woman in the game ever, and can't nobody ever take that from me. Congratulations to the winners. Congratulations to the people that won, but they're not done seeing me yet, period. That was a lot, as everyone can imagine. She was dragged all over the internet for it, back and forth. A lot of her critics destroying her for the way she finished and how boastful her antics have been since the Olympics. Now, Greg, you and I disagree on how people have responded to Sha'Carri, but I want to give you a chance to speak to it and say what your thoughts are on this matter, as far as how she performed, as well as the backlash she's received.
So while you did a great job of paying homage to those who won, the actual media didn't. When in sports, have we ever, in the history of sports, has there been a record-setting event and the last place person is interviewed before the first place finisher? It has never happened, ever. And it sucks because Elaine Thompson-Hera is literally a stride and a half away from beating FloJo's record.
Yeah,
that's what should be spoken about. I believe she broke like 5 records in that race. And then also the continued dominance of Team Jamaica, whose population is 1/8 the size of the U.S. And on top of that, her teammate Daniels, I forget the first name at the moment, finished 7th in the Olympics, but also finished 4th in this race, which means she improved. Mm-hmm. But yet here we are interviewing Sha'Carri. Now, getting into Sha'Carri, she is the most celebrated woman in track and field history. And when
celebrated?
I say, listen close. Yeah. Let me finish. Most celebrated, most talked about woman without even meddling in an event ever. She's gotten commercials, she's gotten endorsements, and she hasn't won anything yet. So now her finishing 9th, yeah, that sucks, especially because she talked a little smack during the Olympics. It's smack talk. But her dismissal of during the pre-race interviews of all the other racers, all the other contestants, the participants, just sitting there like she didn't want to be there, humming tunes in her head. And then you couple that with the post-race interview, she is a child. And the problem is, I can feel sorry for you for what happened prior to the Olympics and empathize with you that you deserved a chance to run. But then when you come out with these antics and these actions after the fact, when people were pulling for you, it makes you look bad. And then it goes back and makes people question, well, did you smoke because you didn't care? Not really because you were traumatized by the loss of someone in your family? Because to come out and say what she said, not even give credit to her teammate, her own teammate, right? Mm-hmm. But to talk about herself as if everybody was counting her out. People wanted to see her race. People wanted to see her thrive. Everybody knew the Jamaicans, hold, but people did not want to see her fail. So for her to come out like that was completely unnecessary. And she compounded it by her social media antics on top of the post-race interview. After the fact, she's doing herself no favors.
Well, before I get into it, Deck, I want to hear your take on it. What do you think of this situation? Do you agree with Greg?
Yeah. So I'm not as staunch in my argument as Greg is. However, I agree with a lot of the basic points that he made. I think even going back a month, when the Olympics is going on, and Steph and I were in agreement that she shouldn't have been banned and that the whole thing was flawed there. But when you go back a month or so during the Olympics and she's tweeting hate at her own team, saying, "Oh, you guys needed me," or I forget the exact tweet.
You missed me yet?
Yes, thank you, Steph.
Yes.
During the relay, when they lost, so we had this whole thing going on where she's making the tweets. Obviously, she's very outspoken. Nothing wrong with that. That's her right, and that doesn't make her unlikable or a bad person at all.
Great.
She's very good for doing that. But when you come in last in a race, and listen, I don't even hate if she would have just came out and said, congrats, it was a tough month off. Happy, looking forward to get back to it. But when you're giving this crazy interview, like that was on a Richard Sherman after the NFC Championship game save and play level. You don't make that kind of interview when you come in last. It sounded a little bit whiny to me. I got to be honest. I don't have any ill will towards Sha'Carri Richardson. I think she's an excellent runner. I mean, one of the best in the world.
Phenomenal runner, yeah.
No doubt about it. Yeah. And by the way, she doesn't mean to tell her that. But anyway, I just think that when you're going on national television, cursing, that's one thing. People do it all the time. But to do that, it's another thing. You come in last, you're cursing, screaming, "Oh, you haven't seen the end of me yet." It just kind of seemed unnecessary. Like you wanted to make sure that you're going to be heard and that you're going to make a headline. And I just thought that it was kind of making herself bigger than the race itself, bigger than the winners. And I didn't really have a ton of respect for how she conducted herself after the race.
I hear all that. And one thing, so Greg, to speak to what you said, as far as the media, that's not Sha'Carri's fault. Sha'Carri can't handle what the media coverage. So let me finish before you jump in. Sha'Carri does not handle that. That's not her problem. That's a media problem, not a Sha'Carri Richardson problem. I do not agree with as harsh as the responses have been for Sha'Carri. Becky spoke to it. She's a trash talker. She's someone that draws attention. This race to me had a larger draw because of Sha'Carri, and that's not her fault. If she's a lightning rod, she's a lightning rod. We love that in sports, though. We love when Terrell Owens did it, where Ocho Cinco did it. Like, we want players that will cause, I wouldn't say controversy, but are boastful because they are that good and they want people to know that. That's not her fault. That tweet she had during the Olympics, I thought that was in poor taste. This is a 21-year-old we're talking about too. And to me, Deck, like you said, that was a very poor interview. There was no accountability for how bad she did, because off the blocks, she was bad. All right. She looked poor. She looked like she wasn't ready to run. And I don't know if she had the will to run. It didn't look that way. And I'm not in her head and I can't speak for her. But when I looked at that race, she looked like she wanted no parts of it. And this is a woman to me that needs guidance, all right, needs constructive criticism, which she deserves. But the dragging to me is so extra, because in the Black community, we always talk about how we need to be there for one another, right? And how, we need to boost each other up. And this is a moment where you could do that. I don't think that her, whatever trash talk you want to refer to, her doing that Nicki Minaj video on TikTok, like, all that to me is good for sports. You want eyeballs on there. Again, it's not her fault that the media is asking her questions or interviewing her before the winners of the match. That's on them, and that's how we should call them out. Let's look at the smoking gun and not focus on the distraction, because that's a distraction to me. Sha'Carri Richardson is a 21-year-old young woman who, in my mind, the way she responded in that interview, she puffed up her chest to try and get in front of all of the criticism she was going to receive. It didn't help her, and she's doubled down and tripled down since. But that's what happens when you back yourself into a corner, the way she talks. And I think as an athlete, a young athlete, she has to realize, if you're going to put yourself on the pedestal, if you're going to boast yourself up and boost yourself up like that, you have to be ready for the criticism. I don't know if she is. Her backing out of the 200-meter race, even though that's not her event, it could be a part of her, talking big and not wanting to have to deal with another loss. That could be something entirely different. We don't know yet. But I refuse to believe that we can celebrate her and athletes like Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka when it comes to their mental health and how they handle issues in their life in one breath, and then conflate it with what's going on now. They should be separate to me. I don't think it matters.
It's ironic that you mentioned about conflating, because I think that's exactly what you're doing. Naomi Osaka and Simone Biles and all the other athletes you mentioned have at least won or participated at the highest pinnacle of their sports and won something. Sha'Carri hasn't done anything.
Why does she have to win something?
Let me finish. She hasn't done anything to warrant what she was how she was talking. She was talking as if she was already there, and she hasn't been there. So when you come out and you lose like that, and you give that interview, you get what you deserve at that point. And then you go out and then somebody says Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price looks like Lil Wayne, and then you as Sha'Carri Richardson think it's smart to like that tweet. This is why I say, you say she should be held accountable, but I don't believe you're holding her fully accountable for her actions.
How am I not holding her accountable?
Because you're saying
you think that dragging is accountability? You think
no. Everybody's gonna get these jokes regardless. You're not gonna like some of them.
What is your accountability?
The accountability is the fact that I'm talking about how she reacted post race interview and how she's reacting on social media.
Yes,
right.
Because she's immature. I said that. I agree that she's immature. That's how an immature person handles a situation like that. But accountability to me isn't what's taking place now. That's just fun and games. That's dragging someone. Dragging someone doesn't make them accountable. But I believe. Let me just finish this real quick. I believe what needs to happen and what I would like to see more, one is someone reach out to her personally. Someone like an athlete, a Black athlete, whether it's a track star, anyone else that's prominent, reach out to her privately and talk to her. But also for the world to see, like, someone tweet at her, like, hey, girl, like, you don't need to do all this. Like, be that mentoring force. That criticism to me, constructive criticism goes a long way. There's not much of that out there.
I'll just like to make note. You hate people cutting you off, and you just cut me off. So I just want to make note of that.
I will.
I just want to make note of that.
Yeah, no, I did cut you off.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So just so we have that in the clear.
5 times a year one, you're welcome.
All right. Yeah. And again, everybody gets dragged. And for you to say that, we're going to uplift, people would have been behind her had she went to this kind of, like Dex said, and said, you know what? I didn't run a good race. I'll come back. I'll be better. But she came out boastful, and then she and it's the shade thrown you can't be shady. And to Garris's point that, oh, she made it out the mud. She's not the only one to make it out the mud. And that she's won something. She's one of the fastest women in the world. But what has she actually won physically? What has she has not won anything in her sport. She hasn't. So to talk how she talks and act how she acts when she's not even in the conversation of medal winners is not, it's not, that's not accountability.
I didn't say there has been any accountability. I feel like there's a lack of it. You should be agreeing with me on that. There has not been accountability. And I think that speaks to her immaturity as a 21-year-old that has been thrown into the limelight. If Sha'Carri had a prelim, right, and she was talked about because of that prelim, because of how well she did, and then you have the weed incident right after that, and now she's all over. She's blowing up in the world, right? Like, this is more media attention than she's ever received in her life. Now we're talking fast forward a month plus later, and this race takes place. There has not been time for her to grow. I'm not saying that she doesn't deserve criticism.
But to me, that sounds like an excuse right there. There has not been time for her to grow. You've been in the limelight since you've made it to the Olympics. But what I'm saying is, no, it was because, like Garrison said, in college, as if you follow track, right?
Yeah.
She's been in the limelight as one of these women that were expected.
Global.
But I think Steph means like the national spotlight.
This is a global spotlight. This isn't just national. We're talking global. What you do in college is because it's going to make it within those circles. That's a very small circle. Even by comparison to the Olympics.
Even then, this is why I say you're making excuses for her, because you're saying, oh, it's immature. She's still 21 years. At 21, you still know right from wrong. There was a tweet that went out that was, in support of American runners, and Gabby Douglas, a women's track runner, who she retweeted and then shaded Gabby. For what? She puts herself in these predicaments. So when you put yourself in these predicaments, you can't be mad when people are mad at you for acting the way you've acted.
I mean, it sounds like you're mad at Sha'Carri for her reactions, and I agree. Her reactions are not appropriate. I think how she's doubling down and tripling down, we're not too far off. I think the problem is that you're not seeing where I'm coming from. She needs guidance. That's what I'm saying. The reason she's reacting this way is because she lacks that. She doesn't have the polish and the poise to be there for that moment. This moment is much too big for her, as she currently is. And because of that, I would like for someone in her field, some other prominent Black figure, to reach out to her to give her that guidance. And if she rejects that, then yes, that's on her. But the help needs to be there. She's not ready. We all can see that she is not ready. And it's okay for us to admit that. I'm just saying, and I also want to address Nikki in the comments. Thank you, Nikki, for making comments. It's the first time I've seen your name in there, but saying that, the whole field, like everyone that was racing was Black. So it's not about being Black. But what I'm saying is about the Black community uplifting and dragging who we want to when it's convenient. I want our community to be there because outside of us, they will attack us for anything. And we see it all the time. All right. Non-Black people will attack Black people for anything that they do, whether they succeed or they fail. I want our community to handle our own. And if you're a prominent Black player or just a fan, it's like, hey, Sha'Carri, love you, girl, but X, Y, and Z. She don't have to listen to you. But those tweets, those messages, because of how big social media is, they find a place and they do resonate. So all I'm saying is, for the Black community, specifically, right? I would like to see, when we talk about uplifting, to do that and to like be there. And I'm not saying that she gets 15 umpteenth tries to get it right, but this is truly the first hiccup for her, because the cannabis thing, you could say that she knew, and whether she did it on purpose or she didn't care, she was going through a loss in her life. Her biological mother died. So that's why I said I don't think that even is a part of this conversation. However, this situation right here, how she handled that race and how she handled that interview was poor, and how she's handling it currently is very poor. And I want there to be guidance for this young Black woman, because I think she can be great, but she needs to level it out a bit. That's what I'm saying.
Garrison is in the comment saying it's very conditional who we drag, and I disagree. In sports, if you talk smack, you get, and you don't come through, you get dragged. How many LeBron haters out there, right, said, oh, I don't like him because he said we were going to win 4, 5, 6, and 7 rings, and it never happened. He still gets dragged to this day because of that. There are people who hate him because of that, right?
Like Pat Bev saying that Steph Curry, the next 5 years are mine.
You know,
And that
like people
Tracy
get Pat Bev was just getting dragged through. Dennis Schroeder has been getting dragged for his contract flub.
Mm.
So the idea that it's conditional who we drag, I don't think is accurate. If you do something in sports that fans deem dumb or out of pocket, you're gonna, especially in these social media age, you're gonna get dragged.
I honestly, and I hear where Garrison's coming from. And Garrison, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm speaking for you, just let me know. I don't think it's about them getting dragged at all. I think it's the extent to which they get dragged, how harsh it is. And I will say it is conditional very often because Black women tend to get dragged the most. Like our Black athletes, Black men. I
Bro,
can see. No,
have you seen what happened to Dennis Schroeder? Have you seen it?
See, no. But see, I don't have to see it. What I'm saying is, it's the and I'm Garrison again. Correct me. It's the level. It's not saying that they don't get dragged at all. It's how harsh it can be for certain athletes as compared to others. And I do see that. We see it in society, not just in sports.
In society, maybe, but in sports, it's equal opportunity because again, because
sports mirror society, and we know that.
Does it?
Don't do that. Don't do that now, because when we talk about race all the time on here, you are very happy saying that sports mirror society.
I don't know if I would say it mirrors society per se, but I think that's a very broad statement. I think there's components to it that it mirrors, but
it's on the record. It's on the record.
That's fine. That's fine. But for you to say that it's only Black women get dragged, no, bro.
I didn't say only. I didn't say
Black
only.
women get dragged more. That's what you said, right?
Yes, the same way that when we talk about police shootings and the frequency in which it happens, yes, I believe that.
And to me, this is the conflation right here, because Black women were the ones who won that race, and we were celebrating them.
No, it's not that it can't be celebrated. So don't get it twisted. It's not about them not being celebrated. It's when things like this happen, how they get dragged. So talking about the other Black women doesn't mean anything in this conversation, because they did well. When they do not do well is what we're talking about. When
I don't think they've gotten the recognition that they deserve.
No, exactly. They haven't.
I agree.
And here's the thing. Sha'Carri doesn't do that interview. The way she does it, she does not get dragged how she did. Plain and simple.
I'm sorry.
She gives a different type of interview. You don't have the reaction and the backlash on social media that you did. She doesn't go out and like a tweet saying that one of her fellow racers, because track is a small community when you get to a certain level, that she looks like Lil Wayne. That's disrespectful. You're telling another woman that she looks like Lil Wayne. She doesn't do that. She's not getting the same type of backlash.
And we talked about this briefly yesterday a little bit. I do believe that the criticism is not as harsh. It was you take the Olympics to that race to the interview, all of that compounded is what really put out all this vitriol, right? And again, there's no part of me that's saying that she doesn't deserve criticism. I believe she does. The way that she's acting is someone that has not been in this moment, and the moment is too big for her. That's all I am saying. I believe that she needs guidance. I'd like to see guidance for her. I'd like to see what she is like after receiving that guidance and what she does next. But I'm not ready in this moment, the first time, to be like, oh my God, I can't believe it. She's this, she's that. And oh, she didn't deserve this. She got smoked. Oh, maybe the reason she was in the Olympics and she smoked is because she didn't care. Like all these assumptions we make and ready to just pull down is like, this is the first time. You would swear that she has this track record. She doesn't.
No, it's not about the track record.
It's about the tweets and how boastful she is, and how cocky she is.
Yes, because
without winning anything, from what you were saying.
Absolutely, because if you're going to talk like that, you're gonna get the Nike commercials. You're getting this. I mean, who is it? Who is the last woman to medal? I can't remember. But you don't see she's the one woman on the U.S. women's track team that's pushed to the forefront.
Yeah,
and again,
not her fault, but that's not on her. Yeah, she's marketable.
Okay,
that is how sports is handled though. Like that's
understandable, but again, to quote Spider-Man, with great, I'll loosely quote, with great privilege comes great responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, you already got a P right.
I said loosely. I said loosely.
Ray Jarvis said I was Tobey Maguire. You can't.
I said loosely.
Can't quote Spider-Man.
Okay, and she, like you said, I will give you credit there. You said she's immature. She has to grow, but that doesn't mean she cannot or she shouldn't be called out for her actions, because her actions were not warranted, nor were they necessary.
I didn't say that he shouldn't be called out for actions. I said where we're going with this and how it has been, how harsh it has been to me was excess. It was extra. I don't think that is necessary. That is like for someone that is a repeat offender to me, someone that has not received, like I said, people in the community can reach, not Black community, but saying like within her, like her peers, the ones that have been there. I would love to see that for her. I would love to see that happen. It's not like it's anyone's one person's responsibility, but when I say immaturity, when I say guidance, that is something that even if she was in the limelight, right, a 21-year-old could mess up. And we see it, like young kids, Deck, you're a young kid. There's things that you will say and do. It's like, man, that's wild. And
I don't know if I say wow. Oh yeah, I do.
but to have the ability for someone to mentor you, whether you want it or not, to reach out and do and say that to me is important. And I wanted that for her before we decide, like, you know what, this is Sha'Carri. She's a piece of this. And it's extra is all I'm saying. It's very, very much extra how we're treating this situation.
Yeah, I just think.
Go ahead, Deck.
I just think you were saying like she's not a repeat offender and stuff, and I know I don't consider her smoking as being an offender, but I think as far as media coverage, not in a negative light, but she's a repeat offender as far as being in the limelight based on a certain story, and I think with that came people reaching out to her after she was banned from the Olympics, or what's the right word?
She was banned. She was banned.
From these particular Olympics.
Right.
She was banned.
Disqualified is the word I was looking for. She was disqualified from the Olympics, and I did think she had a lot of people reaching out to her, from Black athletes across the world to even comedians like Seth Rogen saying, "Trust me, if weed made you fast, I'd be FloJo." Like just all stuff like that on social media. And I thought that the general response, with the exception of some who, like you mentioned, are willing to jump, just pounce on any opportunity they get to, just see that she messed up. But I did think the overall support and the response was overwhelmingly well when she was disqualified. It was in support of her. Now she kind of made her bed here, and I see why Greg is taking that side, because she didn't have to come out and just completely go wild it was on NBC, right?
Yeah.
And on the television interview. And I think that's where, and I see that you don't want to drag her, and I totally agree. She should not be dragged, especially after the year that she's had. But I think the criticism is fair to an extent, but I wish it wasn't as extreme. And I see both sides here.
Before we move on, Anthony Diaz asked, would this have mattered had she won? I think given the Jamaican showing in the Olympics, if she came in fourth place, this would not be a big deal. What it would have set up would be a huge stage for the Olympics in the next 4 years, and you would have a storyline. Can Sha'Carri Richardson beat the Jamaicans? And it would have been probably one of the biggest storylines in track for the next 4 years.
Sha'Carri has beat. It wasn't Elaine. I think she beat Shelly Ann. If not, it was Sharika.
Well, I'm talking on a world stage.
This wasn't a world stage though. But like, if she won here, it would have made a difference. What I'm saying is that she's raced. I forget which one of the Jamaican participants she raced. She raced them twice and beat them twice in a heat. So she has defeated one of them. Just not Elaine. She hasn't seen Elaine. This is the first time she has raced against her.
Okay, but to your point of this is like she's not a repeat offender.
Yeah,
she is. When it comes to the smack talk, and it's not just other people; it's on her own team. And what it seems like, what I gather from how she acts on social media, she's very active on social media, and it seems like she doesn't want the help if people reach out because of how she responds. No. I'm just telling you based on visual perception. Assumption you made, yeah. Assumption based on visual perception.
Yeah, assumption. Okay. I got you. Yeah.
All right. But
Steph would like to make it clear that you're making an assumption.
That's fine, because he's also making assumptions.
Yes. We don't know because she hasn't said anything. We're not in.
But that's why we're having a conversation.
Exactly.
We're only going off what she has done and what she has said.
Yes.
And that is how we're formulating
and everything that she has done and said to me shows an immature 21-year-old athlete that is in a moment that's too big for her. And all I want for her is constructive criticism, more constructive criticism than the vitriol that has been spewed. I'm not saying that there's not going to be memes, there's going to be tweets. That stuff's funny. I get it. You know what I mean? But there has not been balance. We can just admit that there has not been balance in.
Why has there not been balance? Because she has put the energy out there for it to not be balanced. That's on her.
I mean, and apparently it's like if hey, I get what you're saying.
No, but look at
Our
well, let's
approaches are
hold
different.
on, hold on.
Hard hand, soft hand. Hard hand, soft
Look,
hand.
I'll give you an example in a second. Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka, right? They have some pushback, but it's nowhere near the level of the pushback that Sha'Carri Richardson is getting. Why?
Sha'Carri Richardson is Sha'Carri. Then they're not as boastful as Sha'Carri. What's wrong with being boastful?
I mean, Simone Biles is very boastful. She walks around with a goat on her on the leotard. That's not boastful.
A goat on your leotard is like people see. I'm talking about like
totally boastful.
Is Simone out there tweeting that she's the best in the game? Is she talking?
Yes.
Simone doesn't speak like that on her Twitter.
She doesn't speak directly like that, but she alludes to it.
But what I'm saying is that we'll look at Simone differently than Sha'Carri. She's not that athlete. Sha'Carri is a boastful athlete, and I get that. I'm not
Simone Biles is boastful, but because she is the greatest to ever do it, we do not question her.
So you're telling me that Sha'Carri and Simone are similar in that they boast about themselves and the way that they conflate it. It's the same.
They are boastful in different ways. You're just trying to use semantics to say, well, one is boastful in a different light, but they are both boastful about their respective abilities.
I think that Simone speaks to her abilities when people bring it up. She's not one to like talk about herself. People talk about her, and she rightfully so says, "Yes, I am the best out there because you're bringing this up. I'm speaking about it." Sha'Carri is one that's like, "You're not talking about me. I'm talking about me. I'm this person." It's different. Reacting to someone's interview is different.
And what I'm telling you is say Sha'Carri did all of this, right? Went out there and came in first and won. We're not having this conversation.
I think
we're not having this conversation.
Yeah. If Sha'Carri doesn't come in first, right? If she doesn't win, and she has that same interview, we're still having this discussion. Because it's the interview that is the dagger in all of this. Because if she's humbled, you already said this, if she humbles herself, right, if she has some humility and admits that the accountability is there, I did not have my best performance, I need to be better, you wouldn't see as much. But as long as she doesn't win and she has an interview like that, people are going to be after her the way they have because they were tired of it. And again, I don't think that there should be criticism. She needs to be better. She needs to be much better than what she has been, is what I'm saying. I said we're not too far off on our points. All right. It's just that hard hand, soft hand. I look at it as a nurturing moment, a teaching moment where you're like, I want to beat you over the head and you should feel this. And that's how you learn more. That's not how I like it that way.
As someone who has told their nephew it's going to be a sad Christmas if you don't get right. Yeah. Let me ask you a question. KJ gets in trouble in school, right? For a particular thing. And he gets taken out of some activities. I tell you about it. You talk to him about it. Then you find out after the fact he's going and he's talking smack to his teachers and to everybody about this. How do you approach KJ about that after the fact, as his uncle, as a quote unquote disciplinarian?
As an uncle, like I'm sure Sha'Carri's uncle might be doing the same thing to her. You would be harsher words for her, especially if he spoke to them already. The difference is KJ has the sample size is far different. Right. And the influence is far different. So to make the comparison to me is not the same. But if you're talking about in a vacuum, if I spoke to him and then he goes out and he does it again, which I don't know who spoke to Sha'Carri in this analogy, but if I go out to him and he does it again, then yeah, I would be like, KJ, we just spoke about this. Like, what is going on? Like, what is it? I'm going to be harsher. But I don't see where this analogy.
But you said it. You're going to be harsher. Thank you for saying. And that is the reaction.
When is the first time?
The first time was she got banned from the Olympics. That was and people supported her. People supported her. No. It is the same, and here's why: because people were behind her.
Okay.
Right? They gave her the soft hand. They gave her the soft hand. They accepted.
Is there a harsh hand to be given then? Because this isn't the same. Her bragging and being upset about bragging.
Hold on. They said, you know what? We empathize with you. Right? They, like you said, you want to give her the soft, give him the soft approach at first. We want to empathize with you. You did something wrong. It was really wrong. You knew it was wrong, but you had to do this. The world empathized with her. They came, with the exception of a few, the world empathized with her. And what did she do? She took their empathy and slapped it back in their faces. and now you're mad for how they responded to her after the fact.
So I want to shout out Leticia. She said, "Don't drag her son into this," and she's right. Two, they're not the same. Because she got support does not mean like, oh well, you took that and slapped us in the face with it. Just because your mother died and you smoke weed and a rule that's in the Olympics that we all believe is archaic should not be there. You're not racing. Like that happening and her boasting and having a bad interview, they are not the same to me. What happened in the Olympics happened in the Olympics. This race to me is not the same. She wasn't like she smoked weed and they're like, oh no, it happened again, because that would be a repeat. If she smoked again and got caught, it'd be like, why? Why did you do this again when we supported you? So with that, I will say that your analogy does not match up. It's not the same thing. It's something different. And that's how I feel.
Yeah.
Ultimately. Like I said, we're not too far off.
Yeah.
You just won't see my side, and I can see some of your side.
No, I see your part about the.
That's the first time you said it.
No, I said it earlier.
You might have whispered it or said it in your throat.
Guys, I'm sorry about the beeping in the background. Somebody's dusty car keep going off, and I can't do anything about it. And my mic keeps picking it up. But
it's pretty funny though. It is.
And to be frank, just like Justin Miller said in the comments, we are all rooting for her. We want to see her win. She is making herself the bad guy. So, I mean, with that said,
not everyone is rooting for her though.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase.
Like that's
you are 100%.
The Black community as a whole wants to see her win, but she's doing herself no favors.
I see. And what I'll end on is that while you are saying that there has not been balance in the responses to what took place in that race and her interview. So I just don't see the balance. That's why I'm saying if you want to pull and say that we're for her, we're going to push her up, then there needs to be more balance. And I just want to see guidance for this young Black woman, like I said. But for all those that have tuned in and had your comments, really appreciate y'all in the comment section having the war words that you're having.
Yeah, appreciate the new people showing up in the comments too. Shout out to y'all.
Definitely. But we're gonna move on, and I want to talk about the Mets. All right, and I feel like every time we talk about the Mets now, it always comes with a big sigh. But the slide has continued, as you can imagine.
Yes, it has, folks.
Going into the 13 games versus the Dodgers and the Giants, we knew it was going to be tough. However, one positive note: the Mets have taken 2 out of the 8 games. 2 out of the 10 games. 2 out of the 10 games.
Wow.
They're 2-8. All right, they took 1 game from the Giants and 1 game from the Dodgers, and in that time, they have fallen 7 games out of the NL East, with the Braves in first, the Phillies ahead of them. And in that West Coast trip, we did have an unexpected tweet from the owner of the Mets, the Steve Cohen. And I do want to get your takes on it. Deck, I'm going to start with you. But the tweet was, it's hard to understand how professional hitters can be this unproductive. The best teams have a more disciplined approach. The slugging and OPS numbers don't lie. Now, that happened on Wednesday of last week. That day, it was 9 a.m. He tweeted that. That night, the Mets won 6-2. That was the most runs they put up since the Nationals series that they had a week prior. Deck, what do you make of that tweet? And what do you think as far as the manner in which Cohen had conducted himself? Do you agree or disagree with how he handled it?
Yeah, it's hard to understand how a major league owner is tweeting like a talk radio call on, but
I love it.
Let the man finish.
Yeah.
Ironic coming from you today.
Hey, baby, that's what happens sometimes. I'm sorry you got to taste your own medicine and you don't like it. Continue, Deck. Sorry.
Anyway, no worries. But just going back to everything here, like as far as Steve Cohen goes, I don't love the whole approach. I mean, to talk smack about the team, he's got the crazy tweets. Someone says something, he's like, "Oh, I didn't know you made the rules of Twitter." I mean, this is not something I would expect from someone with a net worth of like Bobby Axelrod from Billions right now, the real life Bobby Axelrod. But as far as the team goes, someone had to call them out. So I'm not necessarily so against Steve Cohen doing that. I think that he's a little bit out there on Twitter and he's run into some problems in the past and he's going to run into some more problems in the future. but none greater than the struggles of the Mets offense right now. So for that, I would say that tweet should take a back burner to what's been going on with the Mets, especially since they've played these West Coast teams at home and now on the West Coast. It's really been all downhill from here. So whatever could wake them up. Steph, I see you mentioned the 6 runs the day of the tweet to make it kind of a correlation to this tweet. Maybe so. I'd like to see maybe a little bit more of a correlation. Like you said, they've won 2 games out of their last 10 or 2 out of the last 8.
2 out of the last 10, they're 2-8.
2-8.
So they
okay,
played 10 games. Yeah.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
So I would say in that regard, I'd like to see them get a lot better, especially now that they're falling out of the playoff race. The wild card is going to be a mess. Right now, the Padres on the outside looking in. For some reason, they're the only team in baseball playing worse baseball than the New York Mets right now.
With more talent.
Unfathomable.
Far
really.
more talent. Although Darvish is out, I think there's, I don't know if there's any other major.
Out a week. He just had the back injury.
He missed one turn, I think, in the lineup so far in the rotation.
He's missed like one start. So I'll let Greg take it away because obviously he's the Mets fan, and I'd like to hear his pain. I'd also like to hear it from a very high level because I'd love to hear his pain and everything about this, as sick as it may sound.
And this is why Yankee fans are the worst.
Ain't gonna lie.
But I mean, the Mets offensive struggle is something we've spoken about all season. And I've been on the same train that if we didn't fix our offensive struggles, the pitch is not going to be able to sustain.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's been happening. The bullpen can only hold up but so much under pressure.
That's so bullpen.
Exactly.
Inconsistent.
And Eddie, shut your face. All right. Shut your face. I didn't do anything of this because I've been very critical of the Mets offense all year.
Yes.
All year.
Eddie's funny though, because he says DeGrom is out, but then he says no excuses. So he just gave the excuse and then proceeds to say no excuses.
Eddie must be off work. He must be drinking.
Yeah, no, he's drinking early.
Dude, I've been loving the smoke that Eddie's been bringing lately. It's unmatched.
The Mets, if they can't hit the ball, they're not going to win. Period. And it's not even about, they have a couple of guys hitting home runs, but while Cohen's tweet was harsh, what he said about OPS and slugging is true. Mets are dead last.
Yeah,
and you can't when Brandon Nimmo is your most productive hitter in terms of getting on base and average, you're not going to be a playoff offense. That's just what it is.
Yeah, I think as far as Cohen's tweet, while it might be unorthodox, I don't mind him tweeting something like that because to me it lights a fire under the ass of the player, right? Like you have your owner, your brand new owner, who everyone was excited to have. Stroman tweeting about it, Pete Alonso, all these people, all these players tweeting about it, excited to have a new owner, knowing that they were gonna spend now and have a chance to compete and not have money hold them back. Here he is. After the second half, calling you out for something. And I mean, that speaks more to the coaches and the coaching than it does the players. But I'm sure the players take that to heart because they're the product on the field. I think while it's unorthodox, I do like it. And the results haven't shown in them winning because, yes, they won that night, but then they only won the 1 game out of the 4 against the Dodgers after that. What I will say is one thing that I did like and that I'm hoping becomes a trend was Javier Baez was back and he went 2 for 4, right? And he was a part of that, part of the reason the Mets won on Sunday. I think that Javi coming back and Lindor, because he's on the mend, he's coming back soon. That's the injection of offense that the Mets could use and rally around. We've seen this Mets team do it before, where their second half is awful, it's atrocious, and then it comes down to like the last 2 weeks of baseball, where they need some in the division to lose and they need to win games. I can see that playing out again, just in the timing of it. Lindor is a phenomenal player. We have not seen all that he can do for the Mets this season at all. He's given us a glimpse in a game or two, or games at a time, a few games at a time.
Yeah, really just July, because he hit like 290. That was a good
run. But I mean, he has his games. He's 2 for 4. He might hit the home run. He might score the drive runners in when they're in scoring position. Need to see more of that. And Javi needs to be the offensive threat that we were trading for. He just has not been that. So pitching is going to be huge. Seeing Taijuan Walker pitching better. Stroman has been great all season. We could just admit that he's looking like, the ace of old. I like how Stroman has been. He's not the high strikeout guy, but he gives you a chance every time. But yeah, I just think that the Mets are going to continue down this path. until we get full health, like fully healthy, and we have some of the offensive pillars of this team contributing the way they need to consistently. But with that, I'll move over to the other side of town. All right. And the surging Yankees. Deck said it, 9-game winning streak. All right. Started in Chicago, continue on Monday with LA, and then you went and swept the Red Sox. And the game yesterday was postponed, but against the Twins, you got 3, and you were probably going for 4, for being honest, the way that they've
9 straight. Yeah, 9 straight.
It would have been 10. It could have been 10. If they play yesterday. Exactly. And if Chuck's on here, he probably is bringing up that the pitching still isn't good, and that the Yankees have holes in their lineup still. But I will say that as far as Garrett Cole goes, he's been much better. Over the last week, 11 2/3.
Josh Donaldson Slayer.
One earned run, 15 Ks, 2 wins. Like he's been really great. You also have some of like Nestor Cortez and Luis Gil. Like these guys have come in and performed well. While Montgomery and Taillon haven't been as good as maybe Taillon, definitely not as good as he was like a month ago.
Great this second half.
The second half has been good, but as of late, not as more hittable. And that doesn't mean that that's a big difference. The Yankees have still won with him on the bump.
They've won like 10 of his last 11 starts when he pitches.
Yeah, I'm saying that in the last week he has not been as good, right? And I think leading from the second half start to now, it's tapered off a little bit. You're seeing that he's not as unhittable as he was.
Yeah, he's not missing as many bats, but his ERA is down. I think he went like 6 innings, 1 or 2 runs last game. And then
I don't think it's not back-to-back quality starts. It's not back-to-back quality starts. He has a 5-something ERA. But Deck, I wanted to ask you, what do you think of your Yankees? I know Chuck has his opinion, and I love having him on here because it's juxtaposed to yours. But where are you at with them and the schedule going forward and taking first place potentially?
Yeah, I would just like to say that, Greg, I know you noticed this. We're talking about the hottest team in baseball here. Right now, one of the best teams in the American League. And the first thing I got to hear about from this Mets fan is, well, Chuck would have said, they have holes in their pitching, the offense, holes in their lineup. I don't want to hear any of that right now. This team has won 9 straight. Let's give some credit where it's due. It's nice to see they were revived. This is the same team that everyone had dead and buried in early July. And now just a month and a half later, they're looking to be one of the best teams in baseball. Right now, they are the best team in the American League in terms of heat-wise. I like how they match up against the White Sox. I love how they match up against Boston, and I actually think they're gonna catch Tampa. And I don't know, it's wild to think that they're actually in a position right now to succeed. What's cute?
What you just said.
To catch Tampa?
Yeah, that's cute.
Okay, I guess look at this. So you're a history teacher, Greg, and those who do not learn the mistakes of history are doomed to repeat them. You just sandbagged yourself again. I'm very upset. This is a team that was 4.5 games out. The hottest team in baseball, like I said, probably in excess of 7 times. Those viewers over 21 take a drinking game every time I mention that when we're talking about the Yankees on this segment. But I'd like to shout out the hometown kid, Andrew Velasquez. Fordham Prep product. I went to Xavier. That's my rival. Fordham Prep was always much better than us, but no surprises there. Look at this guy laughing.
No, I'm not laughing. I wasn't laughing at you. Everybody's tired of the car alarm going up. Eddie said he's gonna rob the car tires.
When your wife was in the chat right now, I said, can you take one of your baseball bats and just the window of it? Is that extreme?
And the thing is, I have the AC in the window and the window closed. It's just that the car is literally parked right outside my window.
Whose alarm goes off at 2:00 on a Monday? I mean, This doesn't even make sense. 2 a.m. maybe. I gotta say, I'm very disappointed. You should have called 311. Does anyone call 311?
Not wrong.
But yeah, I'd like to shout out Andrew Velasquez. He's been excellent so far. Who would have thought? Even Tyler Wade is deciding to be an impact player. They've really filled up Gleyber Torres, who when he went on the IL, his last game he was like 3 for 4. So that was a hot shortstop that they had to replace. And Tyler Wade's done so excellently. I guess that wasn't the right word. But Andrew Velasquez, the hometown kid, I actually was almost emotional seeing him. He hits his home run. He's got his family in the crowd crying. I mean, this is a guy who's living at his childhood home, staying in his childhood bedroom. I think that's just unbelievable. And hopefully the Yankees can be lovable again with players like that. Luke Voigt is on a tear. The team is just different when they got Rizzo in the lineup. I mean, I love this guy. Give him all the money he wants. Give him a blank check. But then again, they say that about DJ. But DJ has been heating up a bit. He's sitting around that 275 mark. He hit his first home run in like a month, which is nothing short of remarkable at this point. But his average, like I said, I always said this, and I said this with McNeil too, which I'd like to shout out Brian here, who said, who would have thought that when we had our debate about the middle infielders in New York that each one of them would suck this year? Literally, who actually would have thought not one of them?
Very true.
Not one of them has been good. But I like to say, 300 hitters will get around that realm by the end of the year, and I think DJ is a guy who could be in the 285 range. And given the start that he had in the first half, that's something I would like to see. But I'm very happy with the Yankees. Luis Gil has he's going to pitch tonight, I believe, unless they pushed him. But he's been back. In between starts down in Scranton and back up to New York. I don't know if he's on the taxi squad, but he doesn't have an ERA yet. So that's nice to see. And Nestor Cortez has been excellent.
Yes.
I'll be real brief. The Yankees are doing what they were supposed to be doing throughout the year. This is why people picked them to be AL East favorites. So I'm not going to give them their flowers. This is what they should have been doing. All right. And whether they win the division or wild card, their moments, they need to show up in the postseason, period.
Pitching's going to be real clutch then. You're going to need that. And yeah, I agree with you 100%. I honestly thought you were going to say less words. that covered it all.
Yeah, I rambled, but hey, listen, I'm making up for lost time. I missed the show. By the way, this is the first time I'm on camera with Greg in like maybe a week or a week and a half. I'm trying to remember because he crashed.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, Greg was hanging out with Zion Williamson and Jameis Winston. I was gonna say Drew Brees, but he's gone. So
Drew Brees is in the streets still. He's out there. He's never lived in New Orleans.
No, he's yes, totally. He's hanging out with Alvin Kamara. I'll give you some more clout than that.
But yeah, I want to wrap up with something that is very similar to what we covered on Friday, incident that took place in France. So we did cover Malice in the Palace. Again, if you haven't checked that episode out, please do. But it's almost as if the sports gods. Yes.
It's almost also shout out to Miguel Cabrera for 500. I forgot to mention that.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, we did forget that. Yeah. No, I mean, it was a nice little home run opposite field too. So yeah, shout out to the hitting that milestone. But yes, it's almost as if the sports gods wanted to send a message to us that not much has changed, in the time from Malice in the Palace to what we saw in the basketball arenas this past year till now what happened in France. We had a matchup in France where in the 75th minute, you had Nice versus, I think it's Marseille, I want to say is the name of the team. I don't know if either one of you know. I want to say it's Marseille. Oh, well, either way, there was another
soccer to comment. That's my apologies.
But yes, but the player Dimitri Payet was about to take a corner kick, and he was still a plastic bottle was thrown at his head, which he then threw back into the crowd, and the crowd went wild, and they started charging down to the pitch. Security tried to stop them. Players started gathering by this corner, and you saw fans spilling onto the pitch, and the Nice players were trying to stop fans from entering and confronting the other team. You did have some of that back and forth going there. They did remove players from the field, and the match was supposed to continue. However, the Marseille team did not come back out. They did not want to enter the pitch again, just given the amount of danger they felt that they were in. Because throughout the game, apparently fans were throwing things onto the field. Only this time it hit a player. And we do have someone from the football.
Yes,
they will appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna bring in one of our good friends, Junie, to help talk to us about the match and what happened. When he comes in, I'll give him a nice big greeting. Junie, sir. Oh, the audio's connected.
Does he realize he's on camera? There he is.
Oh, hey, can you hear us? Oh, can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, just change up some of your settings, maybe. Oh, that's what happens. So technical difficulties when you're
on the fly, right?
Yeah, on the fly.
I've watched more news this week than I probably have all year, and I've seen a lot of technical difficulties.
You start to notice things more
Can you
now.
hear me
Right?
now?
Yeah,
Oh,
now we
yes,
can hear you.
Yes. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. I want to just. You good?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I think the audio is playing. Yeah, be
Can you
good.
hear me?
Exactly.
It's like turn your radio down actually in the back.
I like this guy.
Oh,
He's
I have-
listening to us as he's on the show.
Yeah.
That is very
Okay, I had to close
He
it.
was
I had
he
to
was
close
he was in
it.
the comment section.
Yeah, he was. So thanks for joining us, Junie. Just want to get
So-
your take on this. Was this like a kind of bad blood matchup where they've had issues like this in the past, or is this just out of the blue we're seeing this kind
This
of
is
dangerous?
this is a rivalry thing
Yep.
too. I mean, fans, usually they take it a little too far sometimes. I mean, don't get me wrong. Payet, he's a player. He played for France. The thing in France is very funny because a lot of these players from France, they are African.
Mhm.
So you really, either they like you or they don't like you.
Yeah.
Because they're not born there, most of them. So the rivalry is still there because that happened to Balotelli in the past.
That's the Italian player, right?
That's
the black
Italian
Italian
player,
player.
the black Italian player. That happened to him also, when he played for Nice.
Mhm.
And it was
Nice.
against
That's
Marseille
nice.
too.
So
And,
this is an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but usually it's against black players. It's not
Mm.
usually like a white player or whatever the race might be. Like it's usually a black player that usually get targeted. Payet is a very spoken player. He says it like it is, like Balotelli, but
Mhm.
that was a little too far though. The throwing of things. I didn't even know that they were gonna have fans to begin with.
Mhm.
So I just saw the field full of fans. So I didn't like it at all because the security is just awful. You have a bunch of senior citizens. No offense, they need jobs, but you can't
Maybe not
have
that
people you cannot have that job. Like that job is for people.
Like how are they going to stop these people? Like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because if I know I have a 60-something-year-old man in front of me, I'm gonna easily bypass him. And that's exactly what they were doing. But luckily, the Nice players, they were telling the fans to go back to their seats. And it didn't escalate to what could have been
Much
a
worse.
disaster.
Yeah, it could have been way worse.
I put it up in the chat because I was just like, everybody's talking about other sports. But this is happening right now, and nobody's saying anything. It wasn't even on the news.
Yeah.
And I was surprised.
I think like when I saw it, I was because again, you see a lot of security, but not doing much of anything
No,
because they just couldn't. The number of fans
Yeah,
that
they
started
couldn't.
get to the pitch, and to your point about the age of some of the security members, that to me does play a factor, and that's something to think about when you have matches like this and seeing how the fans in a lot of these stadiums have become violent. Whether it's
Yeah.
in America or if it's abroad. I do believe.
In America, I must say, in America, we do a better job, though.
It's not, I don't think there's been as many people rushing onto the court now, but as far as throwing things and interacting with players in an inappropriate way, I see that here.
I just saw a kid get on the field on one of these matchups here in soccer.
I saw that.
It was a little kid. The
He was
mother
like 2
went and
years
chased
old.
him. The mother was chasing him, and I said to myself, "Where was the security?"
How does that
The
happen?
kid was.
It was a toddler.
It was a toddler, and he ran almost to the middle of the field, and no security. The mother went and chased him down.
That's crazy. You
Yeah.
ever see those tackles when like people get laid out at the stadiums? Like, could you imagine the mother is the first one there? Like when I was at FanFest at MetLife Stadium, I couldn't even take a step on the field. If I took a even hop over, I would have had 3 guys in like orange shirts at MetLife Stadium on me. Like,
Yeah,
ridiculous.
You need young people. You need young people to do that job. You cannot have people that are over 55 or 60 doing that job. But in soccer, this happens all the time. Like it's crazy because this happens at least 4 to 5 times in a year.
Mm-hmm. But to be
4 to
one
5
time is more
times.
than it's one time is more than enough. It's too much.
Well, here
Yeah.
one time is like, I mean, it makes world news.
Mhm.
But in
Malice
Europe,
and
in
Malice. We
South
talked about it.
America,
Yeah.
that happens often. Especially if you have, a Brazilian team playing in an Argentinian field. It's just a
And
complete disaster.
and a quick question that says, and it's very often you're saying it's happening frequently. Is it always attached to race, you believe, or is it another factor that you, whether it's reported about or maybe you're surmising yourself, is it something that you see attached to race, or is it multiple factors?
It depends in the geography of the situation, because if it's like, say, like teams like, like English team playing, say, in Italy, I mean, there's a rivalry there because they neighbors and they don't like each other, but it's usually a race thing though.
Mm-hmm. More
Because
often
usually
than not.
usually the fans throw things not at players that are, let's just say, white. They usually throw things at players that are black. I mean, I can remember Dani Alves. He's Brazilian. He's like he's like not light skinned, but he's like in between. And they threw bananas at him.
They were throwing that.
Yeah, they were throwing bananas at him. He picked it up and he ate it, and then he went about his business.
Try to defuse the situation.
But that was a common thing that had happened so many times, and it seems like FIFA don't know what to do with that. Like, I mean, how can you control that? I mean, they banned the fans from Atalanta, a team from Italy, like 2 years ago.
I remember this because they were really rowdy.
Because they made a song about like black people, calling them monkeys and stuff like that. And it was actually one of the players was like Balotelli when he played also there. They were chanting like, racial, songs, and they banned them, and they still doing the same nonsense. It hasn't changed much.
Maybe needing more of an escalation for like fans in response to some of this vitriol is necessary by FIFA. And I think that's something that we kind of discussed on the show a little bit when we were talking about the NBA and some of the fans, whether they need to be fined, something outside of just not being allowed to go back in the stadium. Because if someone's okay with not showing up to that one stadium, and I don't, in FIFA, it's a little different maybe as far as where you're going to go if you're not watching games there. There needs to be a harsher penalty for someone that decides to cross the line, because those lines have to cross. And I honestly felt like there was nothing wrong with Payet throwing that water bottle back. Like,
I mean,
because fans, when you cross that line, I think it's like, it's off. People like to believe it's off limits. But
that happened to Russell Westbrook. Remember when they threw the popcorn on him? During the playoffs. Yeah, during the playoffs, that happened to him, and that didn't sit well either, because I'm like, we going through this over and over and over, and the fans need to be banned. They need to know that they're going to be banned forever.
Yeah, the fan that's spit on Trae Young at the Garden.
Yeah,
you need to be banned forever. There's no like, oh, you're going to be banned for like 30 games or 40 games or a season. No, you're going to be banned forever. You cannot come in. Maybe that way you will, react and say like, you know what, I need to act better. I mean, the guy that did with Ron Artest, he said that he did it for
John
bet.
I believe.
Right? Yeah, he did it for a bet. And I mean, when I found out it was for a bet, I was saying to myself, I mean, we all done stupid stuff, but I don't know if I would go that far. Not against Ron Artest, though.
Wait, are you saying the one that threw the cup or the guy that went down, the Chari Haddad, I think?
No, the guy that threw the cup.
Okay. Gotcha.
He bet with his friend bet him money that, if he could throw the cup and it would hit him.
Yeah.
And it did, and you know what happened after.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree.
Ron Artest is friends with him, so.
Which is weird, but I guess with time, I think we can heal our wounds. But
yeah.
We do have to wrap up. I want to say thank you for coming on. Really appreciate the insight. For guys that don't watch football necessarily, having you on is huge, and giving that insight to how things kind of break down.
Appreciate it.
So thank you. With that, we're going to wrap up. Just want to let you know, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to all Hit List content on YouTube, Facebook, and IG. Our handle is SportsHL. Again, that is SportsHL. So check us out. Coming up on Wednesday, tomorrow, we're going to have Fan Zone with Manny and Mike. Please check that out. Always fun to get the fan perspective. All right, those guys are going to be back at it. And then on Friday, it's us again, between 1 and 2, baby. Smoke and mirrors. So I just want to say again, thank you to Junie for coming out, Declan, and Greg, who was unfortunately had to leave. But from us at Smoke and Mirrors.
that car, that's why.
It was definitely the car.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
take care. Have a great week. We'll see you on Friday.